Hey guys, welcome back to the 214 show today. Today we have Kevin Hodges with Watermark Risk Management International, and he's going to be talking with us all about his experience, through the military and what led him to where he's at today. So thank you so much, Kevin, for being here with us today. Give us just a real quick introduction about your background in the military.
Okay, well, number one, thank you for having me, Renee. I appreciate it. I joined the military a year out of high school. I graduated when I was 17 out of high school, and wasn't because I was really smart. I was just fortunate with where my birthday fell in the year that I started school, a little early. I worked at a garment factory with there was about 250 employees, and my hometown has about 1,200 people in it, about 25,000 people in the county. And I worked in a garment factory. I ran a machine with handling big rolls of cloth, and that's what I did. And I saw a sign. I went to lunch one day at the little Dairy Queen that was in my hometown, and there was a sign, and it was just a billboard up behind Johnson Brothers concrete plant, there in my hometown. It said "See the World," and it had a 1-800 number on it. And so at lunch, I used the payphone and called, and it was the Air Force's recruiter's turn to answer the phone at the central uh, recruiting office in Waycross, Georgia. So he asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, I have no idea. And he asked for my social security number, and I gave it to me. He looked at my ASVAB scores, got all excited, and said, "Yeah, I'd love to talk to you." And I said, he goes, "When you want to talk?" I said, "How about tonight?" He said, "Sure." So he met me at the same Dairy Queen that night for dinner, and in about 20 minutes, I was guaranteed security forces for 6 years, and somebody said, "Why did you do that?" I said, "Well, it was really simple." I said, I didn't know a lot about anything, been from a little small town. And he said, "Well, we went through all kinds of mechanical career fields, electrical. My ASVAB scores were pretty high for those things. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but any of the career fields he talked to me about didn't excite me." And he finally said, "Have you ever thought about being a police officer?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And he said, "Well, if you sign up for a police officer, guaranteed police officer, you get a stripe out of basic training." And I said, "Well, how many stripes do I have when I don't do that?" He said, "None." Didn't know much, but one was better than none. So I said, "Yeah, that sounds good." And then he said, "How long do you want to do enlist for?" And I said, "What's my options?" He said, 4 or 6. I said, "Other than the obvious, what's the difference?" "Well, if you sign up for 6, you get another stripe out of basic training. So two's better than one." So 20 minutes, I made a decision, went home, and dropped the news on my mom. She was highly upset with me. And a few months later, I got on a bus and went to basic training. And so that's how I came to join the Air Force.
Nice.
Um, just wanted more, just wanted more than my hometown could offer. I was a horrible, horrible high school student. I tell everybody I had a perfect GPA, 2.0. It was perfect, no deviations whatsoever. And it took me being in the military and a little bit of maturity, a little bit of guidance from some people that had kind of come from my background and knew where I was going. I'm the only kid in my family to get a college education, and I got that because a African American lieutenant colonel at Minot Air Force Base named Bob Stamps. One day I was in the hallway. I was a senior airman, and I was on a patrol, and just happened to be in the headquarters building. And Colonel Stamps, I didn't even know he knew my name. There were 1,200 of us up there. He called my name. He said, "Hodges," and he put his arm around me and he said, "You're a little sharper than the average troop. What are you doing about your education?" And I said, "Nothing." And he said, "Well, when you leave this building, you're going over to the Pride building at Minot. That's what was the big headquarters building, and it was the survivability facility, and education was off in there." And he said, "You go see Miss Nelson and you tell her you're signing up for a class, and then you come back and show me that paperwork." And that started my college career. And to this day, I had no idea why Colonel Stamp singled me out. And my whole career is like that, with people taking care of me that had no reason to, and they just took an interest and pointed me or pushed me or beat me in the right direction to do the things I needed to do in spite of myself. And so that's kind of how I got to be in the military. So
Yeah. Well, there's a lot in there that you just said. So I kind of wanted to rewind a little bit and how was your expectation? Because back then, obviously, there was not a whole lot of access to internet or social media, anything like that. What kind of expectations did you have on what was going to be on the offload? You know, when you got on that bus to go to basic training, what was going through your mind
My expectation was to get out of my hometown, period.
as far as it went?
Yeah, well, I knew that, my options were pretty limited, and back then in my hometown, it's a great little hometown. It's picturesque and it can be beautiful and all those things, but there's not a lot of opportunity there for young folks. And if you were not college bound back then in my hometown, you were either going to go work in a paper mill in Brunswick, Georgia, St. Mary's, Georgia, or Jacksonville, Florida, or you were going to work in some industry supporting getting wood to those paper mills to make paper. And I knew I didn't want to do that. I was even going to Votech to be a welder. I was almost to the point of being a certified welder while I was still in high school, getting ready to transition. And I don't know, I just, that one day I just kind of had this epiphany that I want more than is offered here. And then I've set myself up so far. Um, like I said, I was a horrible student, and it had nothing to do with capability. It had all to do with attitude. I just, yeah, I often tell people, that my greatest strength is I know what I don't know. Right?
Mhm.
That didn't happen when I was in high school. I was too dumb to not know what I didn't know, and I was too arrogant to think somebody could tell me something.
Yeah.
And so, and just that young person mentality, and even today, I am perpetually a 14-year-old boy at best, emotionally, mentally, maturity. That's about as best as you're going to get out of me. And uh, so just imagine what I was like in high school, about level of seriousness and having a path and what you're doing. And I'll be quite frank, my parents didn't talk about those things. About here's the things you need to do. Here's the things that make you successful in life. It was just never talked about. We were a farm family. A lot of work got done on the farm, and hard work was the one lesson that we all learned. And thank God my parents instilled it in me. I was very fortunate that they did that. And my mom shared with me one time over something. I don't remember what it was. It was a relationship that went bad or something like that, or something, a job or something. I can't remember the exact details, but I was really upset about it, and she said, listen, if you learn to depend on yourself, you'll never be disappointed. Don't depend on other people. And that lesson has stuck with me since then. So, we're in control of what happens to us, no matter our circumstance. We didn't have a lot of money. My parents split up. It was a rough time before they did split up. Them splitting up was the best thing that happened, for their marriage by all means, because they just did not get along. They were terrible together. They were truly matches and gasoline together. And them splitting allowed some calmness to happen, but then there's turbulence with all that. And so to talk of a college education by one of us kids, it just wasn't done. It just wasn't done. And for me to be able to remove myself from that environment and get in the military, um, just man, it blew me away. And what's funny is about the college thing is my first class, I kept my GPA perfect, a C. Second class, I got a B. And by the third class, I had figured out, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go to class. You're supposed to read the material. You're supposed to take notes, and you're supposed to frickin' study. Oh, there's an A. Amazing. Who knew it was that hard to make an A? And literally that was not enforced by my parents. My parents were, when the time, I started working when I was 12 years old. I picked tobacco in my hometown, and I baled hay, and I picked up eggs, and I worked on farms and that kind of stuff. And it was always about, when you're 16, you get a job off the farm and you start working somewhere. It was never about, here's the education, here's the path, put the time in here so it'll pay off down the road. And I'm proud to say that both my boys, my oldest, he was not college bound, but he He went to Votech, learned a vocation. He enlisted in the Army. Spent some time in Iraq, Afghanistan, or Iraq. He did not go to Afghanistan. He tried to go, but they wouldn't let him out of Fort Bliss, Texas. So he separated after a 3-year tour, and he went again to Votech school and picked up trades. So he invested in his education to get himself a skill and a trade, and he does quite well from himself and his family. And my youngest son, I'm very proud of him. It took him a while to get there, but he's got a master's degree. He's working for a defense contractor supporting the Navy, working suicide prevention programs for sailors. And so even though he didn't serve, he's serving in a large way, large way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely kids that you can be proud of. I mean, sounds like they've definitely put in the hard work and invested in their future, whether that's college or a vocational school. They're just, just taking themselves seriously, which is great.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
like
And
you're proud of them.
I am. And both of them have their own path, and I have to remind myself sometimes, even though they don't do things the way I do them today, I have to remind myself I didn't do them the way they did things when they were coming up. And they will both tell you that I was hard as a parent. I was strict. Most of their teachers were scared to death of me because I would come in and say, all right, it's a partnership. You teach, we have them here ready to learn. We have them here fed. They'll be attentive. If you ever have problems with, ethics, you ever have problems with behavior, you ever have problems with performance, you let me know and you won't have that problem again. I never got a phone call, not one. The teachers, one of them told me, she goes, "Oh my God, we're never going to call you. We're afraid you'll kill them," and they'll tell you I was hard, but they'll tell you I was fair. And they both have told me since that that they understand, the way I am, and that they appreciate what we did for them as kids, and I'm sorry, I get a little emotional about that sometimes, but
Yeah, that's
whew,
good though.
didn't know that was coming. I appreciate. Sometimes it sneaks up on you. You think you've tamped it all down, but yeah, but no, they're incredible kids. They really are. I mean, kids. Well, hell, they're 34 and 31 now. So,
Yeah,
but
well,
they're great. They're great young men, and they're people you can be proud of.
absolutely. It sounds like you got all of the skills that you had taken from the military, whether they went in or not. You were able to take all of those skills that you had learned the hard way, because it sounds like your parents kind of not dropped the ball, but just like you said, just kind of omitted that. It wasn't really a conversation with you. And then how did you really find that in the military? Did you have any instances or mentors early in your career other than Colonel Stamps that stood
Oh
out as
God.
changing your
Oh
direction?
man. There's 100 of them. That teaching moments. The first guy I remember is a guy named Master Sergeant John Conley. And John Conley was an old, crusty Master Sergeant. He was a Vietnam era guy. He had a permanent crook in his right hand from holding a coffee cup, and his left 2 fingers were stained from smoking filterless Marlboros. There was nothing that man did not know about our job. And back in the day, it wasn't, Air Force Instruction 31101. It was Air Force Regulation 2071 was the security regulation. And we used to call him 207 Conley, because you literally, man, he could quote that regulation to you like a Baptist minister can quote the Bible, chapter and verse, page number. He'd tell you where it was at. There was nothing he didn't know how to do. And he wasn't, he didn't dress sharp. His uniform was not that sharp. But nobody could touch him because he was so technically proficient in his job. And what I learned from him was, if you are an expert at your job, you might not be bulletproof, but you're bullet resistant. And you can make a misstep and someone will say that's out of character, and they're a great troop. They're a great performer. And we know that was out of character for them, and we'll give them a break. And I took it to heart. And so I made it my business to know the most about my job, and nobody would ever be able to tell me more about my job. And I didn't care if I was standing a close boundary sentry out on the back of a B-52, or if I was in an entry control point, or if I was working in the plans and programs office. I made it my business to know everything about my job. And I carried that all the way through. And that was from Sergeant Conley. Senior Master Sergeant Dave Ingold was another one. He was a hard man to work for. His nickname was called the Dragon. And as a matter of fact, he had this little pewter dragon on his desk. that somebody gave him, because he'd eat you up. I mean, he'd just tear you apart.
Mhm.
And he asked me to work for him, and I was terrified. I went to work for him in plans and programs. And he invested so much time in me, educating me about my job and what I needed to do, and gave me all the points to get there. And I was a little hot-headed. I had a pretty bad temper. And so by this time, I'm a young tech sergeant. I made staff really early and tech really early, just because of the grace of God and some people taking care of me. And when they should have been punishing me, they rewarded me for being innovative and creative and all these things, and I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, dodge the bullet there. But one day, something happened, and a senior NCO came in the office, and the senior NCO was dead wrong, and I let my temper get the best of me. And Sergeant Ingold was in there with us, and I basically, by the time I got done, I had him completely embarrassed this senior NCO that had come in, and I was really proud of myself that I backed him into a corner and he left the office with his tail tucked between his legs. I was kind of bowed up in the chest and was feeling good about myself. And Sergeant Ingold said, Kevin, shut that door. And I shut it, and I thought he was going to tell me good job. And he said, you are the best I've ever seen. And I said, thank you. He goes, no, I'm serious. At the job, you know everything there is to know. And he said, but you got one chink in your armor. And I said, what's that? He goes, your temper. It absolutely discredits everything you have worked for. When you're always losing your mind and you're always getting upset, you're just that guy that's always pissed off. And when you get pissed off, it means nothing, because that's the way you always are. So I went home that night and cried like my mama had told me my daddy wasn't my daddy. It crushed me. It just absolutely took me to my knees. And so I spent a lot of time working on improving myself and getting my temper in check and being able to use it as a weapon when it was the right time to use. And the first time I saw that happen was literally 4 years later. I was known as the calm guy. I was just calm, right? Hey, can't upset Hodges, nothing goes on and stuff. Something went wrong and there were people working for me and I lost my mind on something really important. Oh my God, at the effect it had. And so that was from Sergeant Ingo. Chief Master Sergeant Wick Tolliver, Chief Master Sergeant, Chief Master Sergeant Wallace Thompson. All of them, they put their arms around me and said, hey, this is the path. We're going to help you. Just don't be you. Don't be stupid. Listen to us and learn. And so a lot of times in my career, I heard, stop being you, and so the maturity. But I got to tell you, the thing that the Air Force did the most for me is it taught me, I got a chance to see the world a couple of times, go to a lot of different places and meet people, and then just the diversity that's within the ranks to start with. I mean, you take a kid from a little town in Southeast Georgia and you put him in a flight with people, in basic training, there's 45, 50 other people. They're from all over the world. You mean not just the United States, they're from all over the world, all these different cultures. I'd never been around that. And so what it taught me is that the absolute best and worst in humanity is in every race, color, creed, sex, sexual orientation, nationality. Just pick anything that you can bend people into, and I can show you people that I will never share a foxhole with, and I can show you people I would kill to get to share a foxhole with them. And that's the education I got. That is the most important thing, because we just didn't, in my hometown, we had ethnic groups, we had kids of color, but my only interaction with them was either in the classroom or on the football field playing sports. They didn't come to my house and hang out. I didn't go to their house to hang out. We didn't. And the thing is, I didn't even know that was something that could be done, because it just wasn't done. And people go, man, when'd you grow up? Like 1960? I go, man, I'm talking 1979, 78, 80, 81. That's my high school years.
Mhm.
And they look at me and I say, I'm dead serious, man. I said, I never thought anything about it. Not once did I ever think anything about it. It was never discussed. I mean, I never saw any really open racism or anything like that, but the cultures just didn't mix,
Mhm.
just didn't do it. And so that was an eye opener for me. And for my kids, because of that diverse culture that we have in the military, they are more accepting of other people from other places and cultures, and they truly do judge somebody on their behavior than on the color of their skin or their religious background or wherever they come from. And
Absolutely.
and that's just, I think that's one of the gifts. Military still got problems. We still have issues where occasionally you got stuff out of the way, but at least we're self-policing. And and then that's important to me. And then the other thing that I think is incredible about the military is that you know we're self-policing. We take care of those things that we need to take care of. When we find something wrong, we admit the mistake and put an action and plan to fix it. We truly hold ourselves accountable. But the one thing that always struck me as odd is that we were never held to the values of the society we serve. We were always held to their ideals. Even the civilian leaders, our civilian chain of command throughout the military, they don't live up to the ideals that they hold us to. None of them ever have. And the reason being is that they're flawed human beings, just like everybody else and the rest of us. But that's something to be proud of. And anybody that wore the uniform ought to be damn proud of that, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the lessons, the biggest lessons that I took from being in. I didn't spend 22 years in like you. I only did 6, but in that 6, probably the absolute biggest lesson that I took away from it, that I even repeat almost every day since I've been out, is to each their own. I had my idea of life when I joined as an idiot. 19-year-old Renee was dumb as a box of rocks, an idiot. I had my own, values that I thought were values. I had my own problems that I thought were problems. And then you get with all these people from, like you said, all over the country, all over the world. And then you get posted with someone for a 12-hour midnight shift overnight as security forces. And if you just shut up and listen for a little while, you just can learn so much about so much. And it's like, you don't have to believe everything that everybody says. You don't have to change your opinion. Just listen and just see what a different perspective is. And I think that's something that can take people a while to learn, but once they realize that it's so valuable to just being a member of society. Society, even in Georgia and in Texas and all over the place, it's so diverse now. We don't all have to share the same beliefs, but if you can just listen to other people and see where they're coming from and what their experiences are, you can just kind of add that to the information in the back of your head of what is going on or what you think is going on, and kind of all that. So that's, I really love how you've put all this. This is already, I'm just like, oh, tell me more.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, I got the gift of the gab, that's for sure. Yeah. So um, the the big thing for me, and just listening at you, one thing I want to correct you on. You said I only served 6. There ain't no such thing as only. You served. You stood up, you raised your hand, and made that oath. And that right there is no such thing as only. No such thing. So don't ever say that again. I'm proud to know you, and I'm proud that you were a fellow defender.
thank you.
So
Thank
and
you for
so
pointing that out.
uh,
I agree.
and what's funny is I don't know how old you are, but I'll tell you, I'm 57. I am the best version of myself that I have ever been. I got a few dents, and those minor dents and scratches on the 1800 are now major discrepancies for me because my body's giving out on me and getting beat up a little bit. All those things I did stupid when I was young. But man, mentally and emotionally, I'm the best. I'm serious. I'm the best version of me that's ever been, and I hope I only get better. I hope I can say that every year. That version 0.58 is better than version 0.57. That's what I'm really hoping.
Yeah.
And so,
And the best way to get there and to continue growing, like you said, is, learning from the things that we do wrong, recognizing them and
oh
being
yeah.
able to kind of look back on it and say, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. Are there any other big moments that you can look back on and maybe were like cringeworthy, but you can tell helped project you into a big growth moment?
Probably about the time I put senior master sergeant on. I was working for a guy that loved me, but he would ride a winning horse into the ground, you know. And he's a great guy. His name's Dennis Cabot. He's a retired colonel. And Dennis Cabot will tell you that I was instrumental in helping him put on colonel. I will tell you he was instrumental in helping me put on senior master sergeant. But man, he rode me into the ground. And I love that guy. I mean, I really do. I love that guy. And but when I left the base that he was the commander at, and I left just before he did, when I hit it was at Kirtland, and we had the big mission there, the underground munition storage area that we got stood up back in those days. When I left there, I literally shed a tear, and just it felt like the weight of the world had got off my shoulders. And I put senior on shortly after that, and I was really frustrated because I was back down at tech training, and I was relocating Air Base Ground Defense School from Fort Dix back to Camp Bullis, and I felt lost because I had been doing nuclear weapons security all that time, and so I felt lost. I mean, I was literally like, wait a minute, I can go get an aspirin and I don't need to tell somebody because I'm not on PRP right now, kind of thing. And I felt really lost, and I didn't have it was like I'd lost my vector. I'd lost what I was really comfortable in. And what it taught me was the Air Force was never going to put me in a position to do a job that I could not do, because there were people around me to help me. And it was my first time working with the civilian workforce, really working with the civilian workforce. Our unit had about 60 people in it, and we were probably 40% military and 60% civilians. And so a couple of older civilians, some of the old guys, retirees that had worked over in civil service, they put their arm around me and they taught me things about budgeting, and they taught me things about program management, facilities management, all that stuff to get that job done. And it taught me I don't have to do everything myself. And although I need to rely on myself and do the things I need to do to be successful, that there are other people out there to help you achieve success. And Mr. Johnny Johnson, um, that man taught me more in 20 minutes about how to, run a program than I had previously learned in an entire lifetime in the military. And so just that, surround yourself with good people and latch on to those mentors and latch on to people that improve you and cast off those that drag you down. And so that's kind of the lesson out of there. And that was a big one for me. And I've been able to take that with me, especially since I transitioned out of the military and retired back in 03. That's been really important to realize that there's help out there and not to be afraid to ask for it. And it's not a sign of weakness if you raise your hand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. Because I mean, it's almost the culture to have not just in security forces, but in the military in general. It's almost like an expected to where, you say one thing, but you better not do that. As in, we've got all this preaching about taking care of yourself and mental health and asking for help. But what does that mean when us as defenders did that? Our jobs were at risk, our weapons were at risk, and it was just a whole unstated stigma to things that, what would happen if you actually did what you were supposed to or asked to do. So let's talk a little bit about that. As you were getting out, is there anything that during that process really widen your eyes a little bit about how much people should be asking for help, but just kind of aren't?
Oh, I'll tell you, just prior to retirement, we had a few events happen at Tyndall, and it's around what you're talking about. We had 2 suicides in our security forces squadron, and we had a murder suicide of a husband and spouse that were married together. And people often ask me, are there things that stick with you that still bother you? And I will tell you that's those events, and it's we had a young man commit suicide with a service weapon, and You know, when they tell you there's always signs, if you look post analysis, there are always signs. Well, I will tell you that this young man did a great job of concealing his intent, and he used his fellow defenders to help enable him to carry out his plan, and it ripped our unit apart. The only person he shared it with was a person in another squadron, worked on it, literally had no reason to ever be around another security forces member at all. But he one night, with a little bit too much alcohol, kind of shared what he was thinking a little bit. And the guy talked to him, thought it was just a, drunken moment kind of stuff, and never said anything to anybody else. And then he basically lied to his fellow defenders, and he killed himself with a service weapon, and it really stuck with me. The young man was having some trouble, and we didn't realize how much trouble he was having. He was facing some discipline issues, and his family was really just interesting dynamic. Had a brother in another branch of the service, and the brother was the golden child, had did the right thing, went into the right branch of the service, the real military, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And then when he got in trouble, he just spiraled out of control. And he literally had a departure from reality, and we missed it. And so he committed suicide. And then on the murder suicide, there were a million things that could have been done to prevent it. It included alcohol abuse by one of the members that was covered up by his supervisors because he was a good troop. And at the end of the day, we wound up having him kill his wife, who was an airman in another squadron. And then he was not a security forces member. He was another squadron on the base as well. And then he committed suicide in front of their infant son, and it was a heartbreaker. I mean, it just, oh my gosh. And those things all happened within about a 2-year period. And I often tell people today, and when I talk to a fellow retiree, I talk to a fellow, you run into a wounded warrior, you run into somebody that served. I just ask point blank, how's your head doing? You doing okay? Because I got issues. I admit I got tons of issues, and I do talk to people that I need to talk to, and do good self-care, right? Because if you're not doing personal care and self-care, who are you taking care of? And that was a hard lesson to learn. And so I talk to people when I need to talk to them about it. Those things hang with me. I often think about them in those quiet times, and those troops, and I know them by name, and I can remember their face. So I'm pretty big on right now that self-care thing. If I talk to somebody and they even hint to it, we dig down into it. I'm not afraid to approach the subject. And I've recommended to a lot of folks, including family members, hey, if you need to go talk to somebody, go talk to somebody. And as much as I hate it, I got to say that going to see a professional to help you work through some issues, and it's work, make no mistake, you come out of the backside of it better, learning to deal with that adversity, learning to handle the things that have happened in your life. Because if you can't, they just keep you down. Man, you can't do that. You just can't. You got to keep moving forward. I just, I think about anything we could have done, and it kills me that we missed it. Even if you got somebody that's deliberately hiding it, you always think you could have done something. You do that woulda, coulda, shoulda that you should never done. And that one stuck with me. And when I retired, I vowed to myself that I would not let things get in my way that I had no control over. And a friend of mine in the military, a wise man, he was a chief when I was a master sergeant. He said, stress only comes from two places. And I said, how's that, chief? He had all these pearls of wisdom, right? That he would share with you. And I said, how's that, chief? And he goes, stress comes from two sources. You're either controlling something, trying to control something you can't, or you're not controlling something you can. The trick is to figure out which one is it. What category does it go in? And that is a damn pearl of wisdom.
Absolutely. That's powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it was freeing. It was liberating to think about that because although I'm kind of a 14-year-old, I'm pretty serious about the professional stuff. And I was trying to, oh my God, man, I was trying to bend the world and make the Air Force my Air Force and security forces, all those things. And people go, man, what are you crazy? You're just a master sergeant. What, why are you sweating that stuff? Why are you worried about that? And I used to tell people, control what you can control. I mean, after I got that pearl of wisdom, it helped me quite a bit. And I use it today. I mean, my wife works with me in the business and she is a classic type A personality and she will bulldog something in a heartbeat to get it done. And she gets upset about things. And I'll go, which is it? And she'll go, shut up. I go, which is it? Let's put it in the right bin and let's deal with what we got to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a man, that's such a good lesson to hear and to try and remember. Because I mean, especially with the career field that we were in, it's so intertwined. It's not only your job, it's your life. And then once you get
I,
into the upper ranks, like I mean, I guess any rank, the people that you work with and anyone around you, beneath you in rank, they become part of your family. Like we were saying earlier, you get to know people not only as like their background and their thoughts and everything, but you
oh
get
yeah,
to know their kids' names and their pets' names and where they're from and their favorite meal at the chow hall. And you get to really know these people and to be so close to people and then have something so traumatic happen. It's hard not to take that stuff with you. We had similar things happen at my squadron, and it was just, you can look back on it and think, what could you have done? But I don't know. It just that's a tough one. All of that's a tough one.
yeah.
So yeah,
It hangs with you. Yeah, and so, but the good news is I think we're much better at it than we used to be. I will tell you when I first came in, don't you dare show weakness because your family would your fellow cops, your fellow defenders would turn on you like a pack of dogs, man. I mean, you did not show weakness. You came to work if you were sick. You came to work if there was a marital issue going on. You come to work if there was all kinds of family strife. You came to work and you picked up that weapon and you went to work. And if you didn't, you were labeled every name you can ever remember, right? Dirtbag, scums, scrubs, I mean, whatever, the Geek Squad, right? All those things, the Halls and Walls crew. I mean, all that stuff. And you were put on details that were damn sure not glamorous, that's for sure.
yeah,
And
that's
so,
exactly what happened to one of the members that took their own life at our squadron. She had expressed some thoughts of, her depression, and they took her weapon and she got on what we called Rod Squad. It was
yeah,
relieved of duty
yep.
Rod Squad, and they would, do the unglamorous details around the squadron, and people gave her shit for that. And a couple months into it, everyone just thought she was being lazy and said all these mean things about her. Our shift found her hanging in her garage. It was
Mm,
absolutely terrible, and it makes you look back and think all those things.
yeah,
What could I have done? How could I have treated someone differently,
yeah.
to make a difference in their life?
Well,
And
and I think it shows to prove, you don't know where somebody came from. But the one thing the job did teach me is that anybody is capable of anything under the right circumstances. And you better not forget it because that one thing they're capable of might not be being the troop of the month. They
right.
are they are capable of all kinds of horrible acts when the right pressures are applied. And none of us knows what those pressures are. And anybody that tells you, well, I would never, has never faced a situation where they've thought about it.
Hmm.
And so, yeah. But the good news is, hey, like I said, we're better than we used to be about that stuff. We are doing things now, taking care of more folks. I'm happy to see that we're paying attention to those issues now, and that vets and active duty folks can get help now with those things, and it's there. And we shouldn't be ashamed to take advantage of it. And we
Yeah,
shouldn't shame somebody for needing it. So
right.
all right,
I think we definitely still have work to do there.
Yeah.
But you're right, we're definitely on a better track of recognizing those things and being able to, at least being able to talk about it. Like you said, when you first came in, shove those feelings deep down inside, don't you dare talk about them. But now we can at least talk about them and have these conversations and tell people what they can do if they're having these feelings, go talk to somebody. So as you were getting out, what was that transition for you like? Because you said you weren't really planning on retiring, it just kind of happened for you, right?
No, I was sitting as the command chief down at Tyndall Air Force Base and was looking at my next assignment. And a guy walked in my office and civilian, and he said, "Hi," introduced himself and said, "I understand you might be retiring." And I said, "No, hadn't really considered it. I'm, matter of fact, looking at my next assignment right now." And he said, "Well, he talked to a friend of mine that I had knew, on active duty, and he was looking to basically have a contractor hired to be a security forces requirements expert. And it was for the Air Force Research Lab down at Tyndall, and we had a force protection branch down there, and he needed somebody that understood the requirements process for the Air Force and understood the security forces career field." And so I said, "Yeah, that sounds interesting, but yeah, I'm taking my next assignment." He goes, "Well, you know, I can probably get you paid pretty well." And I said, "Well, how well is pretty well?" And he shared that number, and I went, "Yeah, that is pretty well." And so the rest of the day, he come in the morning, and the rest of the day, and I thought about it, and we had uprooted the family for several moves and that kind of stuff. And now I had kids that one was about to start high school, one had just was in high school, was going to be going into a senior year. And if we took an assignment in the command chief world, we were going to be moving every 2 years. That was going to happen. So that meant that my soon to be senior would graduate his senior year in a high school different from where he had been, and that my youngest would go to 3 different high schools. And I went, stability, chance to settle down, a chance not to uproot every couple years. And so the family never got a vote on any assignment, right? That's not the way it works. So I had established a pattern. Anytime we were moving, we would go to dinner during the middle of the week, and I would spring it on them at the table at dinner. Okay, here's what's going on. So um, I come home and I go, "Hey, let's go get something to eat." And we go out, and when we get to the table, the oldest one goes, "Where are we going?"
Yeah, he could smell it coming.
So you could smell it. And I said, "Well, it's funny you should ask. So here's the choice. We can take another assignment. And if we do that, we're moving every 2 years until the day I retire. And we're going to see how far this Air Force thing is going to take us. Or I can retire now and you guys complete school the same place and we don't have to uproot another household." And my wife said, "Can you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." She goes, "Are you sure about that?" And I said, "I am," because a lot of people had more designs for my career than I ever did. I self-actualized at a master sergeant. Everything else was gravy, right? Everything else was good. Um, and so we let that percolate for a couple of days, and I walked into the general and said, "Hey, sir, I'm going to retire." And he eyes got big. He goes, "What?" I said, "I have an opportunity. I can stay here in Panama City, and my kids can graduate from the same schools, and I don't have to disrupt their lives anymore. And they have served right along with me, and it's my time to pay back." And so I paid the family back without retiring, and really have not had much regrets. Probably helped that I was still working with security forces as a contractor for number of years. We still work with security forces today, so I get to stay engaged with the troops. I get to stay relevant. I get to stay current on what they're dealing with, and that gives me made my transition easier. But it was terrifying to transition because I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know how to prepare for it. And people go, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Look, I'll tell you how ignorant I was. I didn't even really know what a 401k was, right?
Yeah.
I had
It's
heard about them.
that stuff and when you're in.
Yeah, don't I said didn't have to worry about it. I had a retirement. I didn't think about it, right? Thrift savings was just coming online for active duty to be able to participate in that. And I didn't, because I mean literally 3 months and I was gone, about something like that. And so what I tell people today, and I do a lot of counseling with senior NCOs and officers that are retiring and even some folks that are getting out, I tell them you need to think about a couple of things. There's a few questions you need to ask yourself. The first question is, where do I want to live? Where do me and my family want to live? Because that dictates what some opportunities may be available to you. Recently had a guy say he was retiring and he was going to go to a place near Nashville, Tennessee. And I said, well, what do you want to do when you retire? He said, well, I want to be a defense contractor. I want to go work the same jobs I was ever working. I said, well, last time I checked, they ain't a big hub of defense contracting activity around Nashville. So what's the job going to be? How are you going to do it? And he's like, didn't really think about that kind of thing, but he wants to be in Nashville because that's where family is. And so I tell him, think about where you want to live and then think about what you want to do. I said, and then think about two numbers. One, what is the number you got to have for a salary and what is the number you want? Because sometimes we get a grandiose idea of what the afterlife salaries are like. And the market's volatile. I mean, it really is, depending on what you did in the military, you can walk out and you can have a really, really great salary, especially if you're a young comm troop and you've got your Security Plus certificate and you've got your CISP certification and you have a security clearance. There's a ton of work out there in information management, information assurance, risk management framework certification, some of the stuff we do. There's a lot of work out there. But if you want to live, somewhere that there's not near a contractor site that they're doing work supporting the military, that's tough to do because all that work, you got to be in a skiff. You're going to be inside classified spaces. So those two things. And then the other thing that I tell people is never discount what you're qualified to do because of how the military has trained you. And I share a story with them back in the 90s when I was down at Tyndall. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine. Matter of fact, he's a good friend today. He works with us today. I've known him since like 1984. He was over in UCOM and was getting ready to PCS. We thought he was going to come to a place that we could get him into a superintendent position to get him promoted to senior. And as the needs of the Air Force will dictate assignments, he wound up getting an assignment to a 1 deep position for a master sergeant working a program that really was not going to go anywhere for him because the senior NCOs in the military push troops, and if you're not pushing troops as a master sergeant, your chances of becoming a senior master sergeant get greatly diminished. And so he said, am I going to get promoted? And I said, not in that job. And he was coming up on 20 some odd years, and if he took that assignment and did get promoted, it was his last assignment. And so he said, what would you do? And I said, man, I said, I got to tell you, brother, I said, if I could get you here to come be a superintendent, it's in the bag. Your records, everything else is great. That's the only thing missing. You've been in programs for a long time. So he talked to his wife. She wanted to go back to North Dakota where she was from, or at least be closer to family in the Midwest. So he got a line on a job at a place in Wisconsin, and it was a corporate farm. And they raised potatoes for all the potato chip factories. And literally everybody that makes a potato chip buys 90% of their potatoes from this farm. And so they hired him to be a customer representative. And I said, what do you know about potatoes? He goes, not a thing. But back in those days, this was back in would have been about 2000 or so, 99, 2000 timeframe. He gets out as a master sergeant. He's got a job making $65,000 a year in Wisconsin. Cost of living's nothing. He gets a new truck every 2 years, and he gets a $10,000 a year expense account to take clients that have already purchased the potato and to make them feel better about buying the potato they've already bought. That's his job. So he gets to go travel around the country, visit the factories, talk to them about the quality of the potatoes, figure out if they can do something better for them, that kind of stuff. And he got that because he could manage a program. He had leadership skills, he had people skills, he had customer service skills, and he knew how to communicate. And all that came from him being in the military. And there's not a management job out there that somebody that has spent 6 years in the military is not qualified to do. They need to think about that. I mean, granted, I can't go be a brain surgeon, right? I can't do that. But my gosh, any job to where there's requirement for management and management of things and leadership of people, somebody that spent 6 years in the military, they're probably more far qualified than anybody that just came out of, getting their PhD out of college to go move into a new position, because they've dealt with the real world problems of trying to get people to do things, to move and execute objectives, and to achieve organizational goals. And that's what our folks need to remember, is they have they got the secret sauce. There's no such thing as, well, I was just an 11 Bravo in the Army. Number one, you can deal with adversity. So that's the things that our folks need to think about, and they need to really sell those positive qualities that they got out of the military, even if they were just, like they say, just an infantryman. No such thing. My God, look at what you did. And then, for us in the company, we're really doing a lot of push right now on hiring veterans. And one of the reasons we like to hire veterans is because they have this sense of responsibility already. And for us, we offer veterans a way to continue to serve. That's the one thing that I take from it. I just transitioned. I've done nothing but defense contracting, 3 different companies until I bought my company this in 19. But I've still got to serve. I'm still supporting very important national security objectives. We do meaningful work as a company. If it's, literally, if it's a contract that is putting bolt A in slot B, we want nothing to do with that, because the churn on that for people, people want to know that their work's contributed. I'm one of these firm believers that no matter the organization and no matter the job, that if people know where they fit in and how they're helping achieve something greater than themselves, and they know their contributions are valued, you cannot run them off. They want to stay because they have a sense of purpose. And so that's what we try to instill here. That's part of our culture. Our culture for our company is we support those that are our employees so that they can support their clients to go get the good Lord's work done, the work that's important for our country and for our clients. And we do commercial and government work, and we treat our commercial clients the same way. Their mission is our mission. We're about achieving that, helping them become more efficient, more innovative, more productive. A lot of our work revolves around security programs. So better security programs that don't break the bank, the expense of doing a security program. Because if you apply some pretty good risk management principles, you can get a really efficient and effective program.
And I do want to get into kind of the nuts and bolts of what your company does, but I want to take it back to what was that process like, and what was going through your mind, and maybe even like your wife's mind, when you said, I'm going to buy this business?
Oh my God, we were terrified.
Yeah.
Oh, we were terrified. You don't take out a few $1 million loan to buy the company without a little bit of reservation. It was a tough process. Number one, it was my 3rd company. Watermark is my 3rd company, and most retirees will do 3 companies. That's what the averages tell us, right? My first company was a great company to work for. I was with them for 6 years, but they were a larger company, and I was looking for some growth. And just because of some cultural things in the company, I wasn't destined to an executive path there. They were a science and engineering company, and if you didn't have a science or engineering degree, and my degree psychology and sociology, so I'm the fuzzy logic, right, and they're the hard logic guys. So basically, I wasn't going to be a vice president in that company. I wasn't going to get it to an executive level. And one of my bosses had a real frank, candid conversation with me and said, look, I'm going to take care of you. You're going to have a great salary. You'll get good bonuses and have good benefits, but you're not going to have that growth to get to the next level where you want to be. I said, okay. So I joined a startup company, spent about 2.5 years with them, and that was an abysmal failure. Joined the startup. We weren't aligned culturally. We weren't aligned values wise, and it just didn't work out. And so when it was time for me to leave, I called the current owner, one of the current owners, there were 2 of Watermark, and I said, hey, I need a new home. I need to find a new place. I want to do something different. And I had hired Watermark. Matter of fact, I was Watermark's first big customer. I had hired them as a subcontractor when I was at my first company. And I happened to know one of the principals. He was a retired security forces officer that me and him had ran into each other over the years a few times. And so I said, hey, I want to bring some work with me. I want to do this. I want to go capture this work. And he said, well, come on. And so that was back in 2011. In 2013, the owners asked me to move up to Northern Virginia from Florida to be part of a succession plan for them to be able to transition out of the company at some time in the future. But none of us knew what the succession plan looked like. We didn't know if they were retiring. They didn't know if they were selling. They knew they would want to throttle back at some time, because the churn of a small business can get to you. I think you know that very well doing what you do, right? It can get to you because it's you, it's you, you're everything. And so in 2014, the president of the company took a job to be a CEO for a very large guarding company. So he went on kind of a sabbatical from us to go do this large guarding company thing. And so I got asked to be president. And right after that happened, sequestration hit back in those years, and we lost $1 million overnight. We had contracts canceled, we had starts that never happened, and we had contracts scaled back. And so we made some tough decisions. One of the other partners went to half pay. I didn't take a paycheck for about 5 months while we were working through those lean times, but we came out of it and kept trying to push on the business, and so we came out of it a little stronger than some of the other small businesses, and we recovered fairly quickly to get the stuff done that we needed to do. And we had a pretty good run for about a year after sequestration hit, and the partner of the company came back, and he wasn't sure what he wanted to do, so he took a few months off to recharge the batteries, and then basically they both said, hey, we want to retire. We're done. We're done, and we've had all the fun we can take. And so we started negotiating then how to do this process, how to work through me purchasing the company. And we worked all kinds of different options and stuff. And we talked to 11 different banks, and they said no to the loan. It was a couple $1 million. They said no. They didn't like our business model. We're a services company, so we don't have buildings, and we don't have a fleet of vehicles and all this kind of stuff. And so they said no. The bank said no. We struggled, and then we met Chastity Thornton at Atlantic Union Bank, and she's a customer representative. She's one of the VPs for customer relations. And we met her for lunch, and we kind of laid all the financials out on the table. We had about a 2.5-hour lunch, laid all the financials out. And she said, well, I think we can do this. And we had heard that before from other banks until it goes to the next level. Well, just as fate would have it, we ran into the president of Atlantic Union Bank, a guy named Mark Moore, the next night at a event I belong to an organization called the Small Emerging Contractors Advisory Forum, CCAF, that's here in the National Capital Region. And they are a sponsor of that, and they're a great resource for the CCAF members. And we ran into him at this event, and I said, I'd like to tell you, we're really impressed with Chastity. And he said, oh, what are you doing with Chastity? And I said, well, we're looking to purchase the company that I currently work for and our partners. And we just met with her, went through the financials, and I guess you guys will be talking about that pretty soon. Well, the next day he walked into her office with my business card and said, tell me about Watermark. She goes, oh, here, sure. She showed him, and he said, we're doing this. It's going to happen. And so they got after it. They worked with us, and we got this great relationship with them. And they were able to arrange financing for us. We were able to get the financing done, and I was flabbergasted. We had looked for months, and after we joined CCAF, we found our banker, our accounting firm, and our attorney for the acquisition, and made it happen within 90 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and so what was it scary? Oh God, yeah, it was scary. But what it showed me is that power of those relationships and your networks and knowing who to connect with. And that was all because one of my business mentors, Lou Coleman, said, you got to join CCAF. You have to join CCAF. You've got to do this. It's what's good for you to do this. So again, somebody else in my life pushing me in a direction I hadn't thought about going or I didn't want to go.
Mhm.
And so we closed the deal in February of 2019. We are about almost 50% larger today than we were then. We've had great growth. We're right up to about 60 employees right now. We have great relationships with great teaming partners like Mantech Corporation. They are a large organization, defense contractor. SAIC is a great one for us. We have small teaming partners like Defense Consulting Services there in San Antonio that Frank Crowder, former security forces guy, owns. We get great teaming partners there. We have partners like AR Services here in town that are good for us. And you don't do this on your own. You don't have to. Without that network, it's impossible. And that partnering and that teaming and the contractor relationships where you can be a prime one time and a sub the next, it's incredible, and so it's volatile. And our people do some exciting stuff. I mean, we really do. We're doing risk management framework certification for new command and control systems. We're running security programs for new acquisition programs, everything from space launch to aircraft to new weapon systems elsewhere. We are doing a heavy workload for nuclear weapon security. We're doing a bunch of counter weapons mass destruction work, anti-terrorism, physical security. I mean, all that stuff gets me excited, and stuff. I'm like, yeah, this is good work. And we're processing criminal justice records for the Air Force. We work at the Air Force Criminal Justice Indexing Center here at Quantico, and we're processing records. And that work itself, we are saving lives with that work because we're making sure people's records were indexed correctly, and we're doing things like denying people the ability to buy weapons that shouldn't be able to buy a weapon. And we're making sure the information's entered in systems correctly. And that way we can have saves. We know how many saves we have. It's in the hundreds since we started processing these records that we found these things that were entered in error, and we've been able to get it entered correctly. And now we're able to prevent somebody that has bad intentions from being able to go access a weapon legally, so.
Yeah, that happened not too long ago here. Well, before your company, I remember I was still in, so it must have been 2014 or something like that. There was a guy here in San Antonio, I believe, that he had gotten out of Leavenworth, and he was supposed to be filed as not able to purchase a weapon, and he did. I can't remember exactly what happened after that. I'm sure you probably know more about that.
Yeah, it was kind of a catalyst for us getting the contract that we got today,
Great work you guys are doing. And it, like you said, really ties back to having a purpose and being able for all of your employees to remember that they're just doing something. Not only do they have a great job with a great company, a great culture, but really making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, and even for those that don't have the military background for us, they are serving their country through a contractor mode, and they take the work very serious. I mean, I don't think we seriously have an employee today that comes in and goes, yeah, it's my job. you know, yeah, they are excited about their work to do. They're very proud of their accomplishments and that kind of stuff. And that's what we want to continue to do. We were awarded best places to work in the DC area for a small business in 2018 and 2019, and we're nominated again this year. And we chalk that up to the meaningful work and the culture that we set up and how we take care of folks. And we were also awarded our Department of Labor started vet hire awards last year, and we received the gold award last year. We're shooting for platinum this year, and that's how we support veteran hiring. The Skill Bridge program that has been put in place to allow internships. We've had one intern graduate. He has a job with another contractor now, but he spent 6 months with us working there in San Antonio for the Installation Mission Support Center, getting some work done and giving an extra pair of hands for somebody that was knowledgeable to help them transition into civilian life. And we want to do more of that stuff. We'll soon be advertising in a few of the military magazines and stuff for openings, and we're always hiring. We hit all the job boards, clearance jobs, all those kind of things. But for those that are getting ready to transition, I would share with them that they need to prepare themselves to be marketable when they come out. Number one, educate yourself and get any certification that you can get. If you can get your degree knocked out before you get out, it's important. A lot of companies look at that degree, and they see it as another milestone indicator that you're going to be successful because you can achieve an objective and a goal. And even if you got 20 years in the military, that degree still means something to a lot of employers. I would also advise everybody to remember that your military service, and what you did in the military will qualify for you for a job. But then when you start that job, it's still all about performance. That's what keeps you in the job, and that what advances you. And then, and the other thing is that in the military, make sure you take advantage of everything that's offered. So many people get in and they never take advantage of the education benefit. They never take advantage of the training benefit that can be there for them. So leverage of all of that. And then lastly, on the self-care, make sure you're going to the doc and you're getting things documented in your records, because trust me, it adds up over time, and the wear and tear on the body will come to get you. Like I said, I'm 57 now, and there's things hurt on me I didn't even know I had, and so make sure you do that and get things documented. And people go, well, that's about somebody trying to get free money. Well, number one, there's no free money. There's no such thing as free money. It is about you documenting what happened to you so that when things do go wrong, there's a support network you can have access to. And it ain't about you. It's about you protecting your family.
Yeah.
That's what that's about. It's about you protecting your family, because God help you if for some reason you're unemployed and you didn't do a full 20 and you don't have TRICARE, God help you if you have to pay for your own insurance, because that is expensive. We pay 100% of our employees' insurance, and I will tell you, the bill is staggering each year for what we pay. And I can't imagine a family trying to pay that on their own. I just can't, so we're proud to do that. We love taking care of our employees. And like I said, we support them so they can support our clients. That's our mantra. And we do such great work. And so my shameless plug for me is we're hiring. Watermark is always hiring. We're on all the job boards. Our website, www.watermark or WRMI-LLC.com is there. And you can Google us. And if you Google Watermark Risk Management, we'll pop up right at the top, so.
Perfect. So that's the best place that people can find more about you guys and even find out how to apply to get a position with y'all.
Absolutely. Our website, on our careers page, we have basically, I don't remember what you call it. It's the form you fill out on the web page. They fill that out. They gets them connected to us, and they'll be on a mailing list for job announcements and all that kind of stuff. And all the jobs are listed by location and what they do. And our recruiters are great, and they will talk to you at any time about what you're doing. And if you want to reach out to us, there's also an admin page. And if you just want to talk about things in the future, I make myself available to folks to talk to them about what they're thinking about, what they want to do, and those kind of things. And I just recently talked to a young guy that's going to be getting out, that he's currently assigned to an Army unit for the job that he does, and he's miserable where he's at, and he's not being taken care of, and he doesn't feel he's being looked after. And he's got the career field he's in, he's got options, and he's exploring those options. And so my advice to him was, for the love of God, educate yourself, know what you're getting yourself into and what you're walking away from, so.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah. And it kind of wraps into what you were saying about as people are getting out of the military, making sure they're documenting all of their military ailments throughout their career or their enlistment or their time in, kind of being that squeaky wheel. If you've got something, if your back is hurting, if your shoulder's hurting, if you get migraines, if all of this. I mean, when I was one of the saltiest people, and I'd tell you every day, I don't want to have anything to do with the military when I get out. I don't want to have anything to do with VA disability, anything like that. There's the whole stigma around that, just like it is about, asking for mental help as well. Physical is just as important, if even getting out after 30 years or getting out after 6 years, your body takes a toll. And like you said, just, take care of yourself and get it documented and seek the help. And even if the compensation, because I mean, VA healthcare a lot of people have some bad things to say about it. I am in San Antonio, so it's a great place to be for veterans. But definitely, take care of yourself and your family. It's it's a good thing to go out and ask for all of the help, because I mean there is so much support for veterans all over the country. Wherever you're at, you can get help with almost anything. So take advantage of the help. Do that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's my advice to everybody. Don't turn down that benefit out of pride, or if you're pissed off, right? And the way I grew up, you rub dirt on it, right? Rub some dirt on it, get back to work.
rub dirt on it, walk it off. Yep.
Walk it off. Yeah, walk it off. Okay, well, I'm paying the price for that today, and I tell everybody, make sure you're getting it documented.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on here and sharing all of this with us, and with me, and telling people how they can find you and sharing your story and giving back to the veteran community. Is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with?
Take care of yourself. And I don't care if you are on active duty or if you're retired. You got to take care of yourself. And I mean, you got to, and every aspect of your health has to be addressed. Your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, because we're just one big chemical factory. We're all connected, and they all impact everything. When I retired, I've had a few back issues and stuff along the way through my career. And when I retired, when I was working my first job, I was doing a lot of travel by myself, and I had a back episode, and I got to a real bad habit of not taking care of myself, not going to the gym, not working out, and then I was traveling on the road, and I was by myself, and so most of my nights were spent at the hotel bar, eating chicken wings, cheeseburgers, beer, and bourbon, and somehow in just a very short time. Granted, it was a few years from 2003 to like 2006. Over 3 years, I went from like 190 pounds to 264 pounds. And I'm not going to say I was big, but I was so big after sex, I rolled over. I wanted to smoke a ham. All right. That's the way it was. I was huge, and on a 5'8" frame, and so went to the doctor, was feeling bad, couldn't figure out why I was feeling bad, just felt awful. She ran some blood work, and her first question was to me, how much do you drink? And I wasn't hitting it every night, by no means and stuff. But I mean, if I was on the road, I was having a couple drinks, at the bar, that kind of stuff. And on the weekends was pretty social. And I said, no, I'm not boozing it up that much. I mean, I'm drinking more than I did a few years ago, but I ain't boozing it up that much. And she said, doing any drugs? And I said, like what? And she goes, I don't know, like meth, like what I said. Number one, look at me, I,
This isn't
definitely
exactly
no. I said,
body.
the biggest drug I'm on right now is probably bacon cheeseburgers. I said, no, not at all. I said, hell, I still got a clearance, all that stuff. No, I ain't doing that. And she goes, well, you're not leaving here today until we do an EKG. And so then she had my attention, and she goes, and tomorrow we're going to do a CAT scan of your liver. And I went, are you telling me I got cirrhosis of the liver? She said, I'm telling you I need to do a CAT scan of your liver. And she said, I said, what's going on? She goes, I don't know, but I'm going to tell you this today. You keep on doing what you're doing, and I ain't going to have to worry about you in about 6 months. She goes, something's going on, and we're going to figure it out. And so after a bunch of tests, come to find out that of course I was overweight. My God, I was huge. And I had fatty liver. And my liver was ceasing to function the way it was supposed to, so it was poisoning my body. And she said, okay, path's real simple. This weight's got to get off. I was on cholesterol medicine, and even then the cholesterol medicine, my liver wasn't handling it the way it should, so I was even causing more problems. Took me off all the meds. I got on a strict diet and workout routine, and it was really simple. I ate less and I moved more. And 8 months later, I weighed 178 pounds. And so since then, I've gained a little bit back. That would have been 2007, but I've not got close to where I was back then. And right now, I'm heading back under the 200 number because I got a little thick during COVID, you know.
Mhm.
But you know, you got to take care of yourself. It's the only body you got. Everybody, there are all those old mantras and those old sayings everybody's got out there, but it's the gospel, man. You got to take care of your body, and at the same time, you got to take care of your mental, your emotional, your spiritual health. And so, whether you're a religious person or whether you're into meditation or whatever, you got to take care of that stuff and take care of your relationships. You know, the people in your life deserve your absolute best every day. Give it to them. You know, take care of the relationships. That's my advice.
And that is a phenomenal note to end on. I so much appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing all this knowledge with us. I'm going to link all of your websites, social media for your company, everything on how people can get a hold of you. I'm going to link that in the show notes below. So wherever the
Perfect.
podcasts populate, everyone will be able to find it. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Renee. I appreciate being here, and I'd like to come back sometime, maybe next year, and tell you how we're doing. So,
I would love that.
all
All right.
right. Thank you.
Thanks.